Right, thank you, everybody. We will call to order the City Council Committee of the Whole for January 22nd, 2024. To order, if the clerk will help me with a roll call, please.
Albertini,
Here.
Brereton,
Here.
Flurry,
Here.
Frank. Here. Freeman. Here. Gramkowski. Here. McGee.
Here.
Mulhall. Mulhall is absent. Snow.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
9 present.
Okay, thank you. And we have one registered for public comment this evening. We have Sally Medeiros, and she's representing Washington Academy. Sally, would you mind coming up here to the podium, please? Welcome. You just state your name and
Sure. My name is Sally Medeiros, and I am the music teacher and safety advisor for patrols at Washington Academy. I would like to inquire about the possibility of designating a school zone for the perimeter of our campus block. It is a very large block. This would further contribute to the safety of our students with a posted reduced speed limits and also increased awareness that they are in the vicinity of a school. There are 3 major intersections that I'd like to talk about. First one is at 5th Avenue and 6th Street. Currently, it is a two stop signs at this intersection. We'd like to propose having it a 4-way stop with hatched crosswalkings for school crossings. The second intersection is just west of that at 6th Street and 7th Avenue. That one already is a stop sign 4-way, but the crosswalks are not hatched. It's not labeled as a school crossing. I need to back up a little bit. At Washington Academy, we have over 900 students. 54% of them are non-bussers, which means they're either walkers or riders picked up. Half of those, 462, are 6 years old and under. So that is a big concern as far as walking and traffic. Then I go back to, there's another intersection at Allen Street and 7th Avenue, which currently has 1 stop sign. It is a 3-way, so it ends up at Allen. We're proposing that a stop sign go on the west side for the eastbound traffic. Also proposed or asking for is there are crosswalks. There are some crosswalks that just have the 2 lines that go from one side of the street to the other, and we would like to have them hatched and labeled as school crossings. As a safety patrol advisor, I'm out there every morning dealing with drivers and traffic. Because we do not have designated drop-off pickup areas around our school, many parents are dropping their children off in the middle of the street or across the street, and they're running across. So safety around our campus is just it's a necessary thing, and I would just like to see it strengthened more. That's all I have.
okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming this evening, and we will see what we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, under public forum, we have nobody else registered under public comment. Under public forum, we do not have any public forum this evening. Reports of officers, boards, and special committees. We have Pam Lopez-Fettis from Growth Dimensions with us this evening. Welcome, Pam. Nice to see you.
Thank you. It's good to see you. It's good to be here. In front of you, I have a report for the year. We Didn't make any changes this year. However, moving forward next year, we're going to break down our dashboard in order to provide you with some more details in some areas and also to provide you with some comparisons from year to year. We'd really like your feedback. This is really for you to articulate the work that we're doing and quantify some information. But what we've also heard from people is that they like to hear the stories. So we are going to be working on an annual report, and we're going to be featuring some videos and talking about the stories and doing some interviews and really talking about the impact. Sometimes visual gives you a little bit more substantial information than writing it out. And we want something that people will view and not just leave on a shelf. So some of the highlights that we share with you today is Midwest Refrigeration Services. They'll be soon be making an announcement. The work that City of Belvidere has been doing in order to get this project here has been really very hard and working on the CDBG grant. So this project would bring $45 million in investment with over 50 new jobs and 200,000 square feet, but potentially more in the future. We're also working with Stellantis and the Belvidere Assembly Plant. We've been working with them to submit for a grant, a national grant that would help prepare and refurbish the current facility, the Belvidere Assembly Plant, to be more EV ready. We're also working and connecting them with partnerships with suppliers and the Rockford Airport in order to, again, reduce their costs, to increase the number of businesses that they would utilize within our region rather than outside of our region. We're also had our build out, and I want to thank everyone that attended. We had a wonderful ribbon cutting. I want to thank the mayor and the chamber for hosting that. We had over 80 people that attended. It was substantial. That was just amazing. And I'm just guessing at 80 because I think we had about 55 that RSVP'd, but we know it was in excess of that. But it was a wonderful opportunity to showcase a new location. We had staff and board members put a lot of work into the facility. We also had a lot of contributions from Comcast, from Core Construction, from the Board of Realtors, from our architects with Ullman, Ernest, and Martin, that all contributed resources and furniture. So a lot of our furniture was donated by these companies. So we just really appreciate that. We're also working with a longstanding restaurant. At this time, we're not able to name who that would be, but they're looking at the Belvidere Market and specifically the location that was previously Firebeck. So we look forward to being able to share that publicly with the group. We're also been working with a number of locations in Belvidere and outside of Belvidere for potential nationally recognized businesses. Again, sometimes when you get some of these larger projects, they know about your community. They see that there's going to be a lot more traffic, a lot more activity. One I was working with today is north of here. They're looking at a site in Poplar Grove, but he wanted to hear about all the activity because he's thinking all these jobs, you're going to need homes, you're going to, they're going to want a place to eat, shop. So there's great potential in this area. We also wanted to share with you that we're going to be meeting with Congressman LaHood tomorrow to share about our local projects. He's going to be doing a drive-through on US 20 and we mapped it out for him so he can view that. And also we want to reiterate all the applications that have been for support for funding for the community, for infrastructure, for other things that we need. So we're reiterating that information and trying to engage more support for federal dollars. We've also been working with Midwest Broadcasting Services. They work with us a lot on our geofencing, and the geofencing, as a reminder, is really when you open up your phone, you get this kind of ad and this link to go to a website. It goes to our website. So we do the geofencing at conferences that we can't attend or where our customer can be located. So it can be in the U.S., it can be outside the U.S., but we geofence it for a certain period of time, and then we customize our message to them and highlight those activities and resources in our community that benefit that company. So this will be, they're going to analyze the work that we're doing and the impact that it's having in our community, if we're getting really our return on investment with all our marketing. And then I have a handout which has two events that we're sponsoring, coordinating with our partners. One is our legislative update. This is, it's like an information section. We are asking businesses, we're going to be sharing some legislative issues with businesses, talking about that. We're going to ask them what the impact is on their business. How is it affecting their ability to grow, to prosper here? How is it affecting them? And we want legislators to be there to listen to this impact so you can make decisions a lot easier and based on some of the feedback that you're getting. So this is really an opportunity for you to attend and listen. We're going to be making separate invitations to our legislators, and we want our businesses to also attend. This is going to be the first in a series. We're focusing on 4 different areas, and then we're going to ask the businesses, what would you like to hear next time? What are other issues, whether it's national, local, or statewide? The other event would be the Foreign Trade Zone Open House. That's going to be at Capital Warehousing here in Belvedere. Capital Warehousing in the process for being approved for the Foreign Trade Zone. Again, we talked about the benefits that can offset costs for businesses doing trade in and outside the U.S. And this will be a way that businesses can partner with them and also become a foreign trade zone themselves. So this really reduces their ability and their cost and their ability to get their product to their customer quicker. And of course, that time is money for businesses. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Does anybody have any questions for Pam? Alderman Snow?
So, being that last week we approved the R1 deal for them to have the new guy hired to get information, so what do you guys do with R1 and how will this particular thing help you possibly?
So they share that position with us. When we first reviewed it, we were questioning some of the activity. We thought this might be a duplication of services, but they really went back to the table, and that role is really providing data that we may be able to access for site selection, or the cities can access this for feasibility studies. We can do it for, comprehensive plans, but really they're being focused. They're not going to be doing site selection or retention. They're really going to be providing data for economic developers who do that. Now, the data sources that I know that they're entertaining is 2 that I recommended, which was MZ, which is a Lightcast product, and I apologize, I forgot what the other one was. CoStar, which is more for like properties and things like that. So data is very expensive, and the more you can share that information would be great. So I have been MZ certified for I want to say about 20 years, almost since it was started. So I've been working with the product. It's a lot easier. So we talked about maybe if we could share licensures. So if I can get a license and pay a portion and they can get a license. So it'll be a lot easier because I already know the product. CoStar, on the other hand, is much more expensive. And I wouldn't use it ongoing. I might use it maybe once or twice a year. But that might be another tool that I might go to them and say, hey, I need that tool, or I need some information about that tool, and this is what I need. So these are just some examples on how I would access that person and the resources that they have. If that helps.
Which, with all this licensing stuff, so is R1 pick up the cost of all these programs that these guys need, their guy needs, or they already have all that stuff?
It's my understanding they have them, and that's what they're going to utilize. Yep. And they're able to do that with the cost sharing of the other municipalities. Okay. Are you done, Alderman Snow? Okay. Any other questions for Pam? Alderman Albertini?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say I came by, I like your new digs.
Thank you. Thank you. We do have a large conference room, so we do have that available for if we have business meetings. The city wants to use it for business meetings, and we have an extra office there. So we have a lot of businesses that travel to this area and organizations that travel to this area, and they have no place to go to do work. between meetings or, events. And so this gives them that space that they can continue their business while they're here. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else have any questions? Okay. All right, thank you, Pam.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you
Have-
for your time.
You bet. Have a good evening.
You too.
All right, moving on, under public safety unfinished business, we have none. Flipping the page to public safety new business. Item A, Police Department update, Chief Woody. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Since my last report in November of 2023, the noteworthy items for the police department, on December 20th, Officer Kaplan retired from the police department with 17 years. On January 18th, 2024, Carlos Ochoa resigned from the police department. He was a new recruit in Step 3, stated that he still wanted to help people, just not in law enforcement, and ultimately decided that he wanted to take his profession in a different direction. So now that puts the police department down 2 officers. We have information that 3 of our officers are currently testing with other departments, but we are in the process of doing backgrounds on 3 entry-level candidates. And if they pass the testing process and we're able to get spots in basic academies in May, which is the next classes that we have available, then we would be looking at a completion date for them to be on their own January of 2025. We'll be testing and interviewing a lateral applicant this week, and another did a ride-along last week. The testing process that the council had approved or given the Fire and Police Commission authority using our home rule has actually benefited our department quite well. It's made the process itself a lot more efficient. It's allowed people to test when they find out that we're taking applications, which is constantly. So it's just been a even though they're not coming in as fast as we'd like, we know that we're getting more now than if we had that more rigid process. So there is definitely a benefit from the new process being in place. And then, in addition to the squad car we'll be talking about tonight, not this last Sunday, but the week prior, on the 14th, we had another squad car, a K-9 squad, that was struck by a motorist who slid through the intersection at Buchanan and Maine. So we are currently in the process of getting estimates on that. So that would complete my report for this evening, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for the chief? Okay, I don't hear any, Chief. Thank you. And then item B is Police Department as well. Chief Woody, request to purchase a 2024 Dodge Durango. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On November 16, 2023, officers were responding to a fight in progress from the area of Genoa and Chrysler Drive. They were northbound on Genoa as they entered into the intersection of Genoa and bypass Route 20 with their emergency lights and siren activated when they were struck by a vehicle traveling eastbound on bypass Route 20. City's insurance carrier assessed the damage to Squad 13, a 2019 Dodge Charger with the last 4 of the VIN 5928, and ultimately determined the repairs to the squad car exceeded its value and deemed it to be totaled. Insurance payout is $18,113 after the city insurance deductible. A replacement 2024 Dodge Durango and associated equipment expenses are as follows. Vehicle, $41,343. 5-year warranty, $3,429. Equipment and upfitting, $21,750 for a total of $66,522. The unfunded amount for the new squad car and related expenses comes to $48,409. I would request to pay the balance using the police department's DUI equipment fund. These funds come to the city as a direct result of traffic surcharges when traffic violators are convicted of a DUI traffic offense. I would request a motion to authorize the purchase of one 2024 Dodge Durango, equipment and upfitting at a cost not to exceed $66,522, with payment coming from the following: insurance check in the amount of $18,113, and DUI equipment fund, $48,409, for a total of $66,522.
Okay, could I have a motion to that effect, please? Motion by Alderman Stevens, second by Alderman Fleury, thank you. Any questions regarding the motion and the information that Chief Woody had presented? Alderwoman Frank.
Thank you, Mayor. How long of a wait is this to get the new car? Because I'm sure we're short with vehicles right now with this one out.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. When we order it, they don't give us an estimate, they just let us know when it comes in. I know we waited roughly 10 to 12 months for the last batch to come in, but when they came in all at once. So it's hard to say.
Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple for you, Chief. So we're phasing out the Chargers and replacing them all with Durangos, being how they're not making Chargers anymore for police departments, correct?
My understanding is they were going to a electric version of the Charger or hybrid version. So yeah, that would be my recommendation, to go to the Durango for not only that reason, but the Durango also has more cargo capacity with the equipment that our officers are carrying these days. And they need more than just trunk space to accommodate all that equipment as well.
And then I had a question about the funding. So in our fiscal year 2024 capital schedule, we had set aside $252,468, which was carryover from fiscal year 23 for 3 Chargers and 1 Durango. So why are we not using those capital funds? Why are we using this DUI fund?
We actually used those capital funds when those vehicles came in. The reason why we had to carry them over is because we ordered the squad cars, but they never came in that fiscal year. They did come in last year, which ultimately meant we needed to use those funds from the previous fiscal year to pay for them, as well as the vehicles, the squad cars that we had budgeted for last year. So all of the budgeted funds would be exhausted, and there aren't any additional funds within our capital budget to accommodate this $48,000. So this would be our way of trying to kind of fill that gap.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions regarding the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And if there's anybody opposed? Okay, motion passed. Thank you, Chief. And we have tonight with us Lieutenant Drawl. Welcome, Lieutenant Drawl. So for item C, Fire Department update, Lieutenant?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. In the past 30 days, the department has responded to 291 calls of service, averaging 9.7 a day. 2 to 3 were EMS calls, adding $65,270.78 of revenue, totaling $241,080.67 as of January 22nd. We also had 10 car accidents, 6 fires, 6 carbon monoxide incidences, 3 gas leaks, 1 broken water pipe, and a downed power line. And right now, our 160 utility truck topper was installed and is now in the process of getting the chevron applied to the back. We are also getting ready for the promotional assessments. The Police and Fire Commission has contracted the Resource Management Associates to provide the assessments. We have 8 lieutenant candidates and 1 captain candidate. So Chief Shadle and I would like to thank the crews also for bearing the cold and the wind chills, warning days and nights to care for our community. This concludes my update, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Lieutenant Drawl? Okay. Okay, I don't see any. And then we also have Lieutenant, item D on the agenda tonight, which would be the replacement of flooring at Station 2. And I know there's a memo in the council packet, in the committee packet here. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is for Station 2 living quarters. The carpet right now is aged and worn, also the linoleum. So in our bedroom has the carpet, and also our lieutenant's also is carpeted. And it's not ideally for fire stations. Unfortunately, we do try to be clean as possible, coming back from calls, but it's the stuff that you don't see is what we worry about. So we do clean it often. We have carpet cleaners, so we get it professionally cleaned, but there's only so much you can do. The 2% board has also helped approve the fund for 50% of the project, and if there's any additional cost, they will pay for it. And so the project, we paid off the line item 01-5-220-800, that we annually budgeted $10,000 towards a cost shared project of 2%, which we have $7,333 remaining. So I would like to make a motion to approve expenditures of $4,713.23 to complete the living quarter for stations of 2.
I'd
Okay.
make that motion, Your Honor.
Motion by Alderman Stevens, second by Alderman Fleury. Thank you. Any questions regarding the information from Lieutenant Drawl here, or roughly the same information that was in the packet regarding the motion on the floor? Alderwoman Graham-Kowski?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a real quick question. So I noticed Lonnie's Carpet Max, do we ever use in-town services? I think there's a couple of flooring places, just curious.
Yes, we do. We usually we do a minimum of 3 bids, and then we take the lowest bid or the best bid that suits for that project. So yes, we do consider, that's usually one of the first things, is to try to keep it in town as much as possible. We do understand that it's dollars and cents too that comes to it, unfortunately. So,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody on the council? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed? Okay, motion passed. Thank you, Lieutenant Drawl. And then you also have item E tonight on the agenda, and there is a memo in the packet dated 1/17/2024, and that is in regards to the sale of some fitness equipment. Lieutenant Drawl.
Thank you, Mayor. This is in regards to, we purchased for the 2% Jacob's Ladder about 6 years ago. This is like cardiovascular fitness equipment. So it's kind of like a ladder that kind of goes around, evolves, almost like a Stairmaster. So at the time that we got it, it was well sought after. We used it often. And some of those guys that used it are now retired, and it's kind of slowly starting to be on the wayside. So we are very limited on our space, and so we try to maximize as much as possible. So that being said, with that Jacob Ladder just sitting there, we would kind of like to be able to sell that, either sell or trade it. We already contacted Body Dynamics on a trade. We just haven't figured out what equipment we're going to use. So we did send out a survey to all the guys and try to find out what's the best equipment we can use. And it came back like free weights. So that'll be a later discussion. So therefore, I request a final motion is to sell or trade the Jacob's Ladder by any legal means and purchase fitness equipment in its place.
Okay. If I could get a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Stevens. Any questions for Lieutenant Drawl regarding the motion on the floor and the information you have in front of you? Alderman Brereton.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wondered, do we have any idea of a dollar amount on this, what we're looking for?
Unfortunately, we don't have that dollar amount as of right now, so we're in the works with it. We're trying, the best thing to do is to sell it outright, but if we do get the trades, that's an easy swap. So my guess is probably $3,000 to $4,000. So it's depending on what the market is right now for that fitness equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Lieutenant? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, motion passed, thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, moving on, item 3, Finance and Personnel. Unfinished business, we have none. Item 4, Finance and Personnel, new business, item A. Finance Department update, Ms. Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. The city received Medicaid approval on January 17th for the ambulance services. We're waiting for one final document to complete and submit, after which our billing company can release claims. As mentioned in a previous update, Medicaid is far slower to reimburse than Medicare, but while it may be slow, payments will be coming eventually. Second update is on budget discussions. As you know, a special meeting will be held on Saturday, February 17th at 8 a.m. for the purpose of discussing the FY25 budget. A draft of the budget will be provided in advance of the meeting for your review. Please feel free to pose questions as you're preparing for discussions. And in an effort to be respectful of the time you are giving on a Saturday, we would like to make the following suggestion. Only items that exceed the current budgeted amount by more than 3% shall be highlighted. However, council will have the proposed amounts for every line item in advance, and a member can ask that any line item be discussed. The goal is to end the meeting on the 17th with a solid draft budget. It will, however, be an item on a later committee of the whole meeting, should additional discussions be necessary prior to the April 1 public hearing and second reading. So I would like your thoughts on the 3% suggestion.
Anybody? Is there any objection to the 3%? Okay.
And then I have one final update for the night regarding grants. While they're discussed periodically throughout the year, I wanted to bring them all together for you. What you have in front of you on your desk tonight is a list of all active grants, the number of which totals 26, and although the amounts of 2 are unknown at this time, the sum of the 24 is over $10.5 million. Each grant, from its application to the project work itself to the quarterly reports, is a very time-consuming process. Every department truly understands the importance of seeking out grant dollars, and this sheet is evidence of their hard work and dedication to finding those dollars for projects that might not otherwise be possible, providing financial relief to the city and its taxpayers, and they should be commended for their efforts. Thank you to Director Anderson, Chief Woody, Chief Shadle, and also to Mayor Morris, as we have the relationships he has formed with our legislators to thank for a large amount of these dollars.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Hanson regarding any of that information? Okay, I will say this, that some of the money that our legislators, our colleagues in the legislature here in Illinois that represent the city of Belvedere, they are on here, and some of them have to do with public safety. Some of them have to do with economic development and of our downtown. Some of them had to do with, obviously, Irene Road, some of the improvements that will go along with that on Bypass 20. But all of them require a lot of work, a lot of follow-up. Believe me, Ms. Hanson doesn't tell you, but she does share it with me, that a lot of times she'll follow up with the same grant manager, and then they've changed grant managers, or the grant manager may have sent the wrong grant application process, and they didn't catch it, but they're waiting for the results for us to turn in the grant, which had been turned in. Certainly, we can only turn in, Ms. Hanson can only turn in what she receives from them. And so as you can imagine, sometimes it doesn't go quite as seamless as we would hope, but I want to thank Finance Director Hanson, because without her diligence and following up on these and answering all the countless questions and the tremendous amount of paperwork that goes with the grants, it is staggering. So thank you very much for that, and I'm glad we have a lot of these. I hope they all come to fruition. Certainly, that would be a good thing for the community and for the taxpayers here. So thank you for that. Is there any other questions for Ms. Hanson regarding that? Okay. All right, thank you. And on item B, moving on, item B, we have aldermanic pay per meeting. In your packet was a memo from Alderman Stevens dated 1/17/2024. And I guess, I'll read it. I would like to continue the discussion about aldermanic pay for the topic of that. If an alderman does not show up for a meeting, they do not get paid for at least 1/4 of their monthly pay per month per meeting missed. I am requesting that this matter be placed on the applicable agenda for discussion, and so that is on the agenda this evening. I guess I would turn it over. I guess I would ask for a motion. If there's a motion first for discussion's
I'd like
sake.
to make a motion that aldermen get paid per meeting of city council and committee of the whole meetings.
Okay.
Which would be, 48 meetings a year? And at this, How much? 48, and it'd be $150 a meeting.
Okay. All right, we have that motion on the floor. We need a second? You would need a second? Is there a second? Second by Alderwoman Gramkowski. Okay, for discussion, anybody? Alderman Fleury?
Thank you, Mayor. I know the attorney had put in a couple of discussion points, but I guess my concern was that if there's a way to incorporate that, maybe you miss 1 per quarter, if we can have if there's a way to put that together where it's per meeting, but not to exceed 4 meetings. I think that's one of the discussion items you had, but I think 1 per quarter missing a meeting, I think, is reasonable. And for people that have different schedules, still supporting the taxpayers, but then also not missing out on, because there is, like people have mentioned, you're not just doing the work here at the meeting, but you're doing work outside of the meeting time.
All right. Did you want to, would it be proper then to make that as an amendment to the motion?
Well, before, just to see if that's even an option, but just have a discussion if, I just threw out 4, I was thinking 1 per quarter, but, if someone has a better idea of once, whatever the number might be, that's just something I came up with kind of on a quarterly basis, but it could be 4 in a row, but just kind of 4 in general, I think that's reasonable, but someone might think that's not reasonable and you would want a higher number or a lower number, just kind of a starting point, and see if it's even possible, because that wasn't really clear if you could do that.
Answer the mayor's question first. Yes, it could be an amendment. It may be easier for purpose of the minutes in future councils looking at these minutes if we dispose of the motion on the floor and they came back with a new motion if we wanted to. It may be more clear that way, but a motion to amend would be appropriate if you want to go that route. In answering Alderman Fleury's question, I think I kind of addressed that in previous statements that I sent to the council at the very end. The Illinois Municipal Code, let me clarify something that may not have been clear in previous communications I sent to you. There's actually 2 statutes involved. One is the Illinois Municipal Code, and the other one is in Chapter 50 of the Illinois compiled statutes. And they both address salaries of elected officials. The Illinois Municipal Code specifically allows for paying, and it's very similar to the county's code, either annual salary or per meeting basis, one or the other. It does not have within it the ability to say, we're going to pay you basically a salary, but if you miss more than 3 meetings per year or 1 meeting per quarter, whatever you decide to do, then that would be okay. That is not within Illinois statute. We are home rule. So arguably, we may be able to do that. I'm not aware of any other community in the state that does that. There may be one, hasn't been litigated. So the recommendation I'd made was the easiest way to do it, and the one we know we're the safest, if there's ever a challenge, is you just pay on either a salary basis or per meeting basis, and that's it. If the council decides to do a structure where you get paid for some, but maybe not all the meetings you miss, in that scenario, which is I think what Alderman Fleury is getting to, in that scenario, his recommendation would be the way to go, which is you'll get paid until you've missed more than 2 meetings, whatever the number is the council decides on. That might survive judicial scrutiny, but I can't guarantee it because it's never been litigated before that I know of.
Alderman Fleury.
And then the secondary question, if we do per meeting, or like I proposed, maybe this 4 misses, but like when we had that special meeting on December 29th or whatever it was, when you have a meeting outside of the 48 schedule, then how would that work if you can't exceed that yearly amount? If you just take the yearly amount divided by 48, how would you do that?
That's not the way the statute operates. You either get paid annually, and you go to as many meetings as you need to annually, that's your salary. If you do a per meeting basis, theoretically, you could make more than you're currently getting paid, if there's more meetings in the year.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Snow.
And I guess I don't see this as a huge issue. We've had people who have missed potentially for medical reasons, can't quite get here on a timely basis for a couple weeks, things like that. I think as an internal policy that maybe we have bring it up at a meeting, somebody misses 4 meetings in a row, so meaning 2 committee of the wholes and 2 city council, that it's brought up as a topic and tried to address as to what the deal is. They're out of town, they're indisposed, and if it has to be held in an executive session for the purpose of HIPAA, just so we don't wind up, I say HIPAA just so that we don't have, any information going out that shouldn't otherwise be at a public hearing. But just, and then if it continues without a reasonable explanation, then we start the process of ousting them out of the seat and go that route. That's my thoughts. I'm not going to vote yes for changing the meetings at this point.
Alderman Albertine.
Thank you, Mayor. My only concern about doing this is I'm concerned that if you take a pay away for a week from somebody who doesn't show up, that they're going to feel that this is a reason to be off for that week. In other words, the other 6 days of the week, they're not going to answer their phone, they're not going to retort to their constituents, they're not going to follow any policies they need to follow up on. I'm worried it'll set a precedence for some, not everybody or anybody maybe, but I'm worried that this is a precedence it may set up for some of the aldermen that they feel, well, I didn't get paid for this week, so I don't have to do anything for this week. I don't think that's a good thought, but it could occur in some people's minds if we go this route. So that's just my feelings about it.
Okay, thank you. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, briefly.
Mike?
And it's something I've never actually addressed with the council very clearly. Section 50, it's actually 3.1, 1050 of the municipal code governs vacancies of an office, of an older person. That almost always occurs by virtue of resignation, and we're familiar with that's happened even during the current council once or twice. Another common one is somebody passes away in office and creates a vacancy. There is a provision that's called abandonment in office. It's relatively new in the last 15, 20 years of the Illinois Municipal Code. But it covers the situation where an alderperson basically refuses to come to meetings. And what it says is that a vacancy occurs in office by reason of abandonment of office, removal from office or failure to qualify, or more than temporary removal of residence from the municipality. It goes on to say the corporate authorities, being this body, well, the body meets on the first and third Monday, have the authority to determine whether vacancy under this subsection has occurred. If the corporate authorities determine that a vacancy exists, the office is deemed vacant as the date of that determination. Meaning, yes, this council has the ability to say, Alderman so-and-so has not come to a meeting for the last 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, and basically find and vote to have that position declared vacant. We've had that situation come up where an alderperson has missed. One time, a long time ago, almost a year. But there was medical issues, and when the council knew what was going on, and they chose that they did not want to utilize that section and declared vacant. But that provision does exist. I caution against using it. Use it very hesitantly. You don't ever want to be the person to remove somebody from office and find out that they, were just sick with a bad case of something for a few months. But that does exist in case of people that just refuse to come to meetings.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Snow?
And while I do my best to try to attend all the meetings, and there are occasions I might be out of town and can't attend, the aspect nowadays of being able to, possibly attend live, watch the meeting that's occurring like right now, or watch it afterwards and get the main gist, while they maybe didn't have the same input, they do have some knowledge of what occurred at the meeting, what discussions occurred, and so they're not totally out of the loop. Again, being at the meeting does provide much more cohesiveness. I can tell you, having participated during the COVID thing over the phone, it wasn't as great, but it was fairly significant with the discussions that occurred in participation. So again, I don't see that we're having a huge issue, and again, at any given time, I assume somebody could present to the administration that we want to look at somebody seat that we think is abandoned, whether it's a month or 2 months, because there's no stipulation, or was there, and I missed it. And then pursue that. That may stimulate them to start attending correctly in a more regular basis or whatever, but I would rather go that route than change it per meeting at this point in time.
Anybody else? Alderman Stevens?
I've always considered this a job. And like most jobs, if you don't show up, you don't get paid. And just because I don't get paid for a meeting like tonight doesn't mean I'm not gonna do my job during the rest of the week. 'Cause I'm constantly just talking to people about stuff, like, through the city. And I've got people from different wards call me about stuff, and I'm an alderman for the entire city, not just Ward 1.
Okay. Anybody else? Alderwoman Graham-Kowski?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Alderman Stevens. I think it should be paid per meeting. We are hired by our community to serve them. If we don't show up on a Monday, sometimes we need a quorum, and, we should be here. So, I agree with the pay per meeting.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Brereton?
Thank you, Mayor. So I feel this is discriminating against the second least paid position in the city. And so if you pursue doing this, I'd like to see it done with every other employee of the city too. If they don't show up to work, so they should get a penalty too. And just to add to that, some of you want to reduce the alderman's pay by 10%. You know what? Well, I'll be all for that as long as we reduce everybody else's salary by 10%. And then let's go ahead and cut each department by 10% in the upcoming budget. And then we'll be making some progress as far as saving some money. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Alderwoman Frank?
Thank you, Mayor. Normally, I don't ever talk about personal issues, but in 2017, I was in a terrible car accident, and I had to wear a body cast, and I missed 4 or 5 in a row. And I think at that time, if I didn't get paid for those 4 meetings or 5, it would have been a hardship because I didn't have income because I wasn't able to work at all. So that's just, not everybody can afford that. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, Alderwoman Freeman?
I guess bring up the number 3. So if we do elect to do this, then there would be 5 aldermen that would be getting docked pay for missing a meeting, where the other 5 wouldn't, all the way until 2027, correct?
Until the term of office expires.
So those whose term is up in 2025, whether they get reelected or the new people, would be getting docked pay for missing a meeting, while the other 5 whose term is not up until 2027 could miss as many meetings as they want without losing any pay, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman McGee?
Yeah, I agree with Alderman Snow. I think for the most part, we all try to make it, but, I mean, there's always things that come up in life, whether you're sick or just life in general, that you can't make it, but it doesn't mean that we're still not representing our constituents when we're not here. So I don't think I'm in favor of it, so.
Okay. All right, anybody else? We have a motion on the floor. Is everybody prepared to vote on it, or do we want to continue? Anybody, anything left unsaid?
Do we do a roll call?
Sure. Yes, Alderman Fleur?
Yeah, I just wonder if the council had any opinion regarding the discussion of if you can limit it. You said that we could do that. It's not been done before, but we could try to do it that way. And I think that kind of, meets in the middle here of folks who want to do it per meeting and folks that don't want to. If you give a stipulation, and again, I just threw out 4, I'm willing to hear something else. I just trying to find something that can meet in the middle of both of these proposals.
Okay. Whatever the pleasure is of the council. Alderman Snow?
Correct me if I'm wrong, if we pursue this current motion, then we could have this brought back and discuss revising that portion of the per meeting stipulation, or no?
You could bring it back, or you could do it immediately after this vote.
Or you could do it at the next,
Yeah.
we could do it at the 2 weeks. Or you could do it at, in 2 weeks. Yeah. Okay.
Wanted to clarify that we could still go Alderman Fleury's route to amend if we decide if this moves forward.
Okay. Well, there is a motion and a second on the floor, so if there are no other discussion, we can take a roll call vote. So all those in favor of the motion will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Albertini?
Nay.
Brereton?
No.
Flurry?
Aye.
Frank?
Nay.
Freeman?
No.
Gramkowski?
Yes.
McGee?
Nay.
Snow?
No?
Stevens?
Yes.
3 in favor.
Motion's lost. Okay, thank you. We have next, item B, item C, which would be an amendment to Belvedere Local Motor Fuel Tax Code. And in your packet, dated, January 5th of this year, is a memo from the city attorney. And so I guess I will turn it over to him, maybe to give you an idea of some of our discussions that we'd had what prompted this and before we move forward. So, City Attorney?
I was tempted to play the finance director because it's finance related, but I didn't really need to talk to her about it, so just love to see her face.
Right here.
One of the discussions the mayor and I had is, as we know, there's been a significant increase in development along 20 with respect to distribution facilities, both cold storage and dry storage. And some of those facilities will have fueling pumps and services for trucks that are owned by the facility, or I suppose, leased or what have you, so they can fill their tanks with fuel and get on the road. In theory, there's also other entities in the city that have already been doing that. For example, Chrysler historically had some fuel pumps there because they had to put some gas in the gas tanks of the cars they built. I don't know if Cassins does, but other entities do have those. So when we adopted the local motor fuel tax some time ago, it was in 2018, the city adopted a tax on the sale of gas at retail only, which is what most communities do. That is the standard. So you go to the pump, you buy your gas, you're going to pay, in addition to the cost of the gas, the state imposed taxes, a 2-cent tax for the city of Belvedere that's collected by the gas station. They remit that to the city of Belvedere. I had run across a case one day. I don't know why I happened to run across it, but I did, and that was Ford Motor Company versus the Chicago Department of Revenue. And Chicago had done something a little bit differently. I'm not sure how many other communities do this. They impose a tax not only on the purchase of gas at retail, but a tax on the use of gasoline or fuel. It could be diesel within the city limits. And then there's an exception. If you bought the gas in the city, you don't pay that use tax. The theory being you could buy the fuel elsewhere, right, and use it in the city and escape the tax. And in that case, what happens is they had pursued Ford because they'd imposed that tax, and Ford was, of course, putting gasoline in the gas tanks of the cars that made at their plant that was in their assembly plant that was in Chicago. And it got litigated because Ford said, you can't do that. You can't make us pay this tax. We're not really using the gas. We're not driving the car around. Chicago defined as the act of putting the gas in the tank was the use. And the first appellate district sided with the city of Chicago and found that, yes, you can tax the use of gas within the city of Chicago, and you can define that use as the act of putting that within the fuel tank. So it got me to thinking that, all right, if we're going to have all these new fuel islands out here, the city council, it doesn't have to, but may want to consider imposing that tax upon them as well, because they will be beating up our roads and driving on our roads and what have you, to recapture some of those costs. In drafting the proposed amendments that I attached to my memo, one of the thoughts I had is we certainly don't want to get Mr. and Mrs. Smith that bought the gas in Poplar Grove to put in their lawnmower. They're using the gas in the city, they're putting it in a tank. So it's careful to define it that use only applies to a motor vehicle that is registered under the vehicle code of the state of Illinois. In other words, if you go to Poplar Grove and buy a can of gas for your lawnmower, for your snowmobile, for your boat, what have you, it's not going to apply to you. You don't have to pay it. And I don't know too many people that go buy 10 gallons of gas someplace on a gas can and put it in their car. So as to avoid that situation, we're not hitting our residents for fueling up out of the city. If they fill up in Poplar Grove, they're perfectly able to do that, drive and use it in the city of Belvedere, and the tax is not imposed. It only applies if you fuel a motor vehicle that's registered on the Illinois Vehicle Code within the city and fill a tank in the city, but are not buying it at retail. In other words, you're going to the pumps that you happen to own and filling it that way. So I don't know if I explained it well, but if you have any questions.
As the council probably remembers, some of the development, some of the business that we're going to have come into the community are going to have 1,700 to 1,800 semis per day. And the other one will have approximately 1,900 semis in and out per day. If there is a fueling center on site, then I thought it would be a good idea for the city to be able to capture that as if we were having one of our retailers dispense it here in the community. So, that being said, I don't know how much revenue that's going to generate, but I believe it will be sizable. So Alderwoman Freeman had her hand up first, then Alderman Snow.
Thank you. I have a couple things on this. To you, Mayor, those on-site fueling for our new developments, would those not have to be approved before they would be able to build those? And are those sites going to use their own fleet of trucks that would be fueling there?
Well, they were approved to have, one of them, large, Project Yukon was approved to have fueling on site, so they are going to. And not so much just Project Yukon, but probably any other major development that we get in the future. They still are going to be driving on our streets, on our roads, and anybody else, if they fuel here, I happen to fuel here, that's one thing, but if they don't and they go out of town and they fuel, that's another. But if they're fueling here, actually dispensing fuel here at their location, then that would be a way for us to also make sure that they paid for some of the burden that was created. But yes, in answer to your question, yes, that was included. We knew that we're going to be putting a fueling center on site.
Okay, and then I see this impacting, like Cassens Transport does have fuel on site, but also First Student, the school buses. My question is, what about farmers? They often have their own fuel tanks on their farms for their tractors and their equipment. How will this impact them?
Again, the tractors, things like that are not registered under the Illinois Vehicle Code, so it would not. Their pickup trucks that they're driving around, if they fill up there, yes, it would.
So how do we know where we're putting that fuel? I mean, if I pull up to the gas station up the street and I pull out my gas can for my lawnmower or my snow blower, I'm putting my card in and I'm paying at the pump, I'm paying that 2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we know that those farmers or whatever aren't just filling their trucks with that? Like, we can't monitor that, right?
There might be some difficulty monitoring small users, yes.
Yeah. No, and that's not essentially what I had in mind whenever we had looked at it. I don't think it's the farmers. I think it's some of the 1,700 semis in this case that are going to be in the community, on the streets, on the roads.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with Cassens Transport paying their share of that either. I do worry about First Student in the school buses because I feel like that's going to get passed on to the taxpayers in the next District 100 contract, that extra cost. So that's my concern.
Okay. Alderman Snow?
So when we're talking about this distribution of their fuel, at some point they are paying the fuel to the state as well, because they're paying it from their distributor who's collecting and or billing them for the price per gallon per whatever they get delivered. Is that a fair assumption? So we're just trying to piggyback our 2 cents onto what, in theory, if we could have the state collect it, we would have them do it.
I'm not sure if the state imposes their full amount of tax on bulk sales or not. I know there's a tax on it. I'm not sure if it's the same as the retail tax of the pump or not.
Okay. Alderman Stevens?
Well, it was discussed, farmers. Farmers use a special fuel. It's non-road use, and it's dyed a special red. That was so if you're caught with that in your normal vehicle, the state will go after you. But it's definitely a special color, and it has no road taxes on it whatsoever.
Okay. You know, I don't know what sort of revenue stream we would be looking at, but it's 2 cents, and it's an investment then that they would make. I'm guessing, the city attorney and I had done a little bit of computation, and we were.
Guessing.
Yeah, guessing, computation. We were, you know, on both sides of the spectrum. I do think probably somewhere in the middle, but it would be a sizable amount, and it is only 2 cents, but it would cover, certainly, as we face some of the expenditure issues that we have, it would probably be better to pass it on that way than it would be to pass it on some of our expenditures here with our budgetary items that we're going to have, and not to mention, and you all know what they are. So anyhow, that was the basis behind that theory. Alderman Fleury?
So I'm all in favor of having people pay their share if they're using the roads, and like you talked about, these 1,900 vehicles that are becoming, and that does make sense. But alternatively, is there that could have deterred then businesses from moving here, or do you think the other incentives would make up for that? Because if not many cities are doing this, and now it comes down to our city or someone else, so we're going to miss out on hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue that would come from the business side of it because they're trying to get this 2 cents on the gas, or do you think that's not relevant to their decision process as you've dealt with some of these companies that have tried to come into our city?
Personally, I mean, I would only be speculating, certainly not from where they sit, but from where I sit. But I think if you're going to do business in a community, and if there's any expenses that you're going to create or burden that you're going to create on the community, I think, you'd want to be a good partner, and I don't see that would 2 cents would, I mean, that's how I look at it, it's 2 cents per gallon. So I don't think that would be a hardship for anybody. They pass on expenses that they have to their consumer, and I don't see any issues where that it would be a detriment or an obstacle for anybody to come here. I think, and it's not all of them, because the ones that, you know, there are other big, really big business opportunities that we've had where they do not have bulks, they do not keep fuel, sell it by bulk as well. So, but anybody who goes to the gas station here that lives in the community, they have a 2 cent per gallon tax, and that's, I guess, the way I look at it. Alderman Fleury, continue.
Right, so then how do we regulate, like if it's, just say, for example, Project Yukon gets 500 gallons of gas, how do we know they're getting 500 gallons of gas to their facility?
Did you want to? I mean, I can tell them, you know, when they have fuel trucked in, obviously they have to have receipts for the amount of fuel that they bring in. Obviously, if they bring it in and they continue to bring it in, they're dispensing it. So I don't think that's a big, you know, I don't think that's a big deal to overcome. And I think they would probably, if we passed it, I think they'd be forthright. I think they would be okay with that. City attorney might have a different take on that one, but
no. With respect to the retail sales, we usually ask them to give us the same thing they give the state so that we can compare, contrast, and make sure that we're getting whatever they pumped and they report to the state, right? And of course, if they misreport to the state, that has criminal consequences to it. We would not have that same fallback in this scenario. So to some extent, you'd be initially trusting them that they are filling out their tax returns, their forms that would be provided by the Finance Department's office correctly. We do always have the right to audit their records, and that's when you start looking at the receipts from purchases and things like that, and what was shipped on site. That's something we're probably not equipped in-house to do easily, although if it's small enough, perhaps we could. But it's also the kind of thing, you know, next time we hire a firm like we did with Azavar years ago to do an audit of Comcast or Nicor, we could throw that in there as well and audit those records as well.
Alderman Albertini?
Thank you, Mayor. As you said, the companies that we'd looking to tax for this, they ultimately pass this cost along. So it's no cost to them, of course. But who they're passing these costs along to is the consumers, which are us. And aren't we basically just taxing the taxpayers in the long run in a vicious circle. And as somebody else said, wouldn't it be maybe somebody else considering coming here in the future as to not? I mean, we can't use a crystal ball, we don't know, but it's something we need to consider when we vote for this. But it's, my main concern is it's all in a big circle. It's all gonna come back to the taxpayer paying this tax, not the companies. I mean, if we could come up with a truck tax, which again, they're gonna pass along to the consumer anyways. So I don't feel any way we look at this, we're gonna end up paying this tax, not the companies.
Well, as I've said always, you know, that I don't want to pile on, but it is 2 cents. And it is, anybody who locates in this community, whether it be with public safety, whether it be with education, whether it be with whatever, Parks and Recs, any taxes that they cause for residents here, and there will be fees associated with when you put a lot of those type of trucks on the road. So, you know, I think in answer to your question, I guess I don't know for a fact that would be it. All I can do is judge it for, you know, what I think it means to the community and how much it is, and keep it into perspective, that it's not, what is the state, who can help me out and tell me what's the state motor fuel tax, what do they charge, what is it, I don't know, 40 cents? I'm not sure, but I know it's a lot. I know the state has put a gas tax, or their gas tax, they've increased their gas on fuel, and it's a lot. And I don't want to be one that piles on and makes it more difficult to attract here, but I also think 2 cents speaks for itself. So, Alderman Snow?
So I get Alderman Fleury's and John's point about, you know, hindering future growth. I don't know that it would make or break, so I'll have to agree with the mayor on that. But when it does come to dispersing the cost, it's not just the cost that's going to hit the city in that. It's not, we as the consumer of their product are just such a small fraction. It's the whole country per se that's paying it. It's like grant money. When we get $250,000, I'm just throwing a dollar amount for putting in our well from the state. That's grant money. Well, who's really paying that? We, taxpayers, and the rest of the state are. And we're paying for everybody else's well grant money and stuff. So it's all just a shell game of money spending and disbursement. So I would agree with going ahead and trying to recoup this kind of fundage.
You know, I think that is a good point, and I recall that years ago, whenever the city had inherited the old Belvedere High School / junior high on Pearl Street, whenever we had inherited that, we had went after federal funding, which that does include all taxpayers pay, and we do. At that time, we had paid federal funding, federal taxes for years, and as far as I knew at the time, under Mayor Peterson, the city of Belvedere had never went after any federal funding, a sizable amount, but we did. We went after, I think it was $4 million to be able to help so that they could renovate the old junior high. But in theory, you're right. I mean, that expense is passed on, but when you look at it, the communities get it, and it's passed on over a tax base that is, every community pays federal taxes. So somebody is going to get it in that respect. And in this respect, I do think that Alderman Snow is correct. It's the same type theory. It is a very small amount of money that actually would be passed on here because of a tax that the city of Belvedere put on. Very small. So, if that answers your question, or, okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. So anyhow, I guess, where are we at?
We need a motion.
Thank you. So I would need a motion, and somewhere along the line, we'd have to have a motion then to approve that, what we had discussed about regarding the amendment to the Belvedere Local Motor Fuel Tax Code.
And Mr. Mayor, if there were a motion, it'd be a motion for City Council, the amendments presented by the city attorney's memo dated January 5, 2024.
Okay, and I think, thank you. Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Stevens, and when you look at this, the city attorney has underlined or highlighted the changes that would be done to the ordinance. So specifically, it relates to that, and you'll see it again in 2 weeks. So we have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed. Okay, motion passed, thank you. And item D, Scanal Properties recapture fee. In your packet was a memo from City Attorney Drella dated 1/12 of '24 regarding the recapture fees. And as you know, that in order to serve, in order to get services over as far as they did, as far as they will run water extension, they will be entitled to have a recapture fee if anybody uses them or develops property that's adjacent. They are paying to put a certain amount of that in that goes above and beyond their project. So if the city attorney wants to chat about that first, feel free. You wrote the memo.
Brent, do you want it, or do you want me to take it?
Or Brent?
Okay. You recall we did the annexation agreement with Scanal. They put in utilities that extended to the west end of the property. Those will service the property on the west side of Irene Road. So before you is a recapture agreement. It was negotiated with Scanal. They've already signed it. For you to consider to recapture those costs from the benefit property to the west of Irene Road. That just so happens to be the MRS property that we've been talking about earlier this evening. They're aware of this as well. They know it's coming. We put it in their annexation agreement. And actually, they're at a point already where they're ready to pay in the next week or two because they're pulling permits to do their work. So this will be one of the shortest lived recapture agreements of all time, because as soon as it's approved and they pay and we pay, Scanal will be done with. So I would recommend approving the recapture agreement attached to the memo dated January 12th, 2024.
Okay, and then the motion would be to approve the recapture agreement between the City of Belvedere and Scanal Properties, number 554 LLC. Motion, thank you. Motion by Alderman Albertini.
I'll second that.
And second by Alderman Stevens, thank you. Any questions, any other questions regarding the motion? Alderwoman Freeman?
Thank you again. I guess I'm just a little confused as to why we have to do this if it was already in the annexation agreement that we approved before construction.
Oh, the annexation agreement with respect to MRS just says that there will be recapture. The amounts were not known at that time, nor how it's going to be assessed. So this sets all that forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. We have a motion on the floor then. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if there's anybody opposed? Okay. Motion passed, thank you. And then item E, we have committee appointment regarding Alderman Clayton Stevens to the Boone County Council on Aging.
not an objection, but just a curious question. So, this would be one of the few, appointments outside our regular, 4 meetings a month. If we change the per meeting, does that count as a per meeting for somebody?
Yes, it would.
Well, it all depends on how you draft your ordinance, actually. For
Under-
example,
Go ahead.
I know that former members of the county board were paid for every meeting they attended, whether a county board meeting or not. All depends how you draft it. The proposal was just for city council meetings, though.
Okay, I'm just curious. Just for curiosity.
When you ask the question, I definitely, it is a meeting. It would be another meeting, so, but that's probably irrelevant, I guess, now. So, okay. Alderwoman Freeman.
Thank you. I'm just curious as well, what does this appointment entail? What does this person do?
They attend a meeting every quarter at the Keene Age Center. And I think they would be a liaison between the city and the Keene Age Center. Much like what we used to have with aldermen that sat on the county board, the / city county coordinating committee as well. I think those meetings, though, were maybe a little bit to blame for why it became probably not productive. I'd sat on those meetings, and I think those were monthly at that time. But it becomes a little bit cumbersome and burdensome to be able to have that. But these are a monthly meeting as a liaison between the city and the Keene Age Center. Mm-hmm. Any other, Alderman Snow?
Did you mention they were quarterly, or I guess I
Yes.
for some reason thought they were monthly? They're not monthly?
No, no.
Every 2 months.
Okay. Okay. All right, Alderman Brereton?
Thanks again, Mayor. So just for the record, Alderman Albertini has resigned from the Keene Age Center, which has opened up this position, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yep. You should have a letter on your desk. So, any other questions? Any other comments? If there's no objections, I believe I can make that appointment. Okay. But I did want the council to know, I think it's important that we go ahead and fill it. Okay? All right, thank you. Then we have, moving on, item 5, other. Resolution authorizing certain annual parades for 2024. Those parades are part of the attachment that you have in your packet. They list them as Exhibit A. Could I have a motion to that effect, please? Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Fleury. Thank you. Any questions regarding the motion on the floor? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 And if there's any opposed? Okay, motion passed, thank you. And then we have item B, the intersection review at Union Avenue and 6th Street in your packet. And we'd had some discussion at this, I know, at meeting a week ago. But it is dated 1/11 regarding new stop sign at West 6th and Street and Union from Alderman Stevens. Alderman Albertini actually had, I actually saw Alderman Albertini driving that intersection, not while I was driving through it, I'd stopped, but he probably didn't see me, but it's one of the times I did stop. So anyhow, we have that on the agenda this evening. So Alderman Stevens?
Yes, I mean, I'd like to make the motion that we remove the stop sign from Union and 6th Avenue, and then do we need to?
I think we could probably, if we're talking about 6th and West 6th Street and 5th Avenue is what some of the discussion was, I think we could probably do that, separate them. And if if the committee wants to send that for review, Mr. Anderson and can review that. So So
Okay,
is,
then remove the one from Sixth Street and Union Avenue.
okay, so we have that, do we need a second? Is there a second? Second by Alderman McGee. Alderman Burden.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to amend this to read, motion to move the new stop sign at West Sixth Street and Union Avenue to West Sixth Street and Fifth Avenue.
Okay. So we have an amendment to move that. I know we had talked about this. Mr. Anderson had a comment, I'm sure.
Do you want to wait to see if there's a second first?
Well, is there a second, I guess? Can I get a second to do that then, if you want to just relocate is what it amounts to? Mr. Anderson?
The intent would be that we would do a intersection review of Fifth Avenue and Sixth Street and bring those findings back to the next Public Works Committee for council's consideration at that time. Gives us time to review it, get the accident data, get the history and things there to see if the warrants are met for a four-way stop at that location.
Okay. And Alderman Burden, I just want to say that when we talked about this, I think, I hate to see us, maybe relocate the stop sign before we have a better understanding of what the information may be. I don't have any objections to it other than the fact that if it's warranted or not, or what have you. And no, there's nothing regarding whether or not I think they should go there. It should go there. I think it ought to be warranted. Alderman Burden.
Thanks again. That's fine. I can go with that. Just for the record too, I did speak with Ms. Vespucci today, who originally came with this stop sign. She's aware of this and, aware of the situation, is willing to have it moved if we go that route. Just on the same note though, I'd also, I think Washington Academy would know better than any of us here. So I'd like to follow their recommendations too, if we can add that to the discussion or whatever we're gonna do. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think we do have a safety measures that was provided. I think everybody got them. I did. Is that right?
Again, the intent would be the Public Works would look at those recommendations that were presented tonight, map them out, put them out, and review them, and then offer up a report on those through the next committee meeting.
Alderman Burden.
I'll withdraw my amendment.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Let's go Alderman Albertini.
Okay, as long as we're gonna be doing research of this, taking one stop sign out, putting another one in, I did want to mention that back on 7th Street, there is a stop sign. And again, you're just causing the same, because there's,
Yeah, 7th.
yeah, there's one at.
7th Avenue?
Yes, 7th Avenue, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
So you're just creating the same stop bottleneck project.
I understand.
So that's one of the reasons I didn't think it was a good idea. But the other thing is, if we're gonna do a survey of taking out signs and putting in signs, I think at the same time, as long as we're spending the time, if we could take a survey at the same time to look at my proposal to put in school zone signs to bring the speed limit down to 15 miles per hour there. So we're not just doing redundance or another meeting later. If we could do all these studies at once,
Okay.
so that we have all the information whys and hows for all three scenarios.
Okay.
So that would be my motion.
Well, we've got a motion on the floor now just regarding the stop sign removal at Union and West Sixth Street, right? That's what we have. Okay. So I understand, though, moving forward, and we can get to that here. Let's dispense with the motion at hand, and then we'll get to the other one regarding Fifth.
Okay, thank you.
And school zone and what have you.
I understand
Okay.
one thing at a time.
Okay. Alderman Snow?
So, just for clarity, while I was the one that made the motion for the stop sign, because we did have a constituent come in and voice concern and ask for it. And having always had support in my ward where people came in and wanted stop signs, I would always go with the caution of putting the stop signs, and despite the warning from the DOT's standards. But I get the fact, and I'm glad the particular constituent came forward and was okay with readjusting the potential for revising the intersection. So I just want to say that while we made a decision, it was in the best interest, we thought, of the community at that point, because somebody had raised a safety concern. It wasn't just willy-nilly to do so.
No, I agree with that, and I think when you look at where that stop sign is, and when you look at the bus traffic that comes off of either it goes eastbound off of 6th Street, or potentially you have buses that come in from the south and the north, and they turn right, they drive right into another stop sign. So, at some point or other, I think traffic has to flow. And, as I'd said before, we could put a stop sign at every intersection and probably be, we would call that prudent and safety. But also, I think Mr. Anderson, he does let us know that whenever we decide to put a four-way stop in, that there are parameters and criteria that either support them or they don't. Sometimes we do. Sometimes I know we haven't. We have disregarded that. In this case, though, I do think this one was probably a mistake, just for the flow of traffic and for the what you're going to have with buses and the amount of traffic where you have children being picked up and dropped off, and it sets up. It really does set up a situation where people are coming around, coming off and headed west on 6th Street, and you have a stop sign right away, and somebody may have the false sense of security that thinking they're going to stop, and that isn't always the case. But it's up to the council. But Alderwoman Freeman and then Alderman Stevens.
Thank you. So as far as the Union Avenue stop sign, I'm all in favor of that. I drive that street every single day. And I don't know how many times, at night, I drive it at night a lot, and I don't know how many times I have just slammed on my brakes, and thankfully nobody was behind me, or there would have been an accident. So I'm all in favor of removing that. As far as our discussion about the Fifth Avenue one, if we've got Brent doing studies on that, and we're looking at statistics, to me, that intersection is more of a District 100 problem. There isn't a problem when the kids aren't coming to and from school. There isn't a problem in the summertime or on school breaks. So it's only when the kids are in school. And District 100 contracts with First Student for crossing guards at places like that, like 6th Street and Johnson Court, 6th Street and Persons Parkway, 6th Street and East Avenue for the Meehan South kids. So, and there's already big pedestrian crossing signs at that intersection. So I don't know why parents haven't gone to the district and the board and said, hey, we need a crossing guard there if there's that many students crossing at that intersection. I think maybe that might be a better route to go than the city putting up a stop sign.
And I don't dispute that. I think we need to probably see what the traffic study shows, and then it could be very well right. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I just don't know if we have enough information. But moving forward, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to say. I think Alderman Albertini pointed out that you have another stop sign then at 7th Avenue and 6th Street, West 6th Street. So you have another one right after that then again. So I get it all. I get it all. But I think the best way to go is let's try and get all the information regarding the school zone and anything else. But no, I get it. I hear it. I hear you. Okay, who'd I miss? Anybody? Alderman Stevens, thank you.
I was gonna say the same thing, coming down Sixth Street, you're on autopilot heading for home or wherever. And I know the signs there, and I've damn near done the same thing.
Yeah.
Come to a screeching halt.
Yes, I know the feeling. Okay. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to remove the stop sign at Union and Sixth Street. That's what the motion is. Is there any other discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed? Okay. Motion passed,
And that'll come back as an ordinance, correct?
and that will come back in ordinance, yeah. Okay, so, yes. Alderman Albertini, yes.
Sorry, Mayor.
Yep.
I'd like to ask the lady that we did give this permission to put this sign into, if there's some way we can communicate with her to let her know our decision and why. And even though she mentioned she is comfortable with it, to let her know that this will be being done, so that she doesn't feel we just have no concerns for her feelings.
I understand. Yep, we will.
Thank you.
Alderman Berardi?
Thanks again, Mary. Ms. Vespucci's fully aware of everything we're communicating, so thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, so with the future sign and that situation, then I assume we can get some information back before the next committee meeting, perhaps, or?
Yep, I'll attempt
I don't
to-
know how long it'll take you, Brad.
We'll put it all together, we'll look at the school zones, we'll look at the proposed crosswalks that
Okay.
was included in the presentation tonight, what that means for parking, if there's additional ones that are not there now. There's parking limitations around any established crosswalk too, so those ramifications will be all looked at, as well as the accident history of that intersection. And we'll review all the intersections around the school, so that we'll have a complete understanding of what the current information tells us.
Great. Thank you, Director Anderson. All right, item C, executive session to discuss, I'd like to move into executive session to discuss collective bargaining matters pursuant to Section 2C2 of the Open Meetings Act. If I could get a motion to that effect, motion by Alderman Frank, second by Alderman McGee. Thank you both. All those in favor will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Brereton.
Aye.
Flurry.
Aye.
Frank.
Aye.
Freeman. Gramkowski.
Aye.
McGee.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Albertini.
Aye.
9 in favor.
If you give me a few moments, Your Honor, get us off the air.
Okay. All right, everybody.